Jabir was wrongfully convicted of a Boston murder and spent 38 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. Though he was freed in 2021 and had all charges last year dropped against him, he has yet to be compensated by the Commonwealth for all that he lost while he was wrongfully imprisoned. He is a talented musician, a proud father and grandfather. Let's give him an enthusiastic welcome.
It was May of 2013, the week of Mother's Day. And I did what I usually had done for the 29 years that preceded it. I ordered a card, mailed it home, and timed it so that it would arrive on Saturday, the day before Mother's Day. On the morning of Mother's Day, first of all, I did it this way, not because I lived out of state or out of the country, but because 29 years earlier, I was wrongly convicted and sentenced to die in prison. I went and came down on Mother's Day morning along with a host of other prisoners and found our place in the line waiting for the phone so that we could call our loved ones. When I called, one of my sisters answered the phone and said to me, "Mom's is in the hospital. They found cancer, and she's not expected to live through the night." Whoa. What, wait? What are you talking about? She said, "All of us are on our way down to the hospital to say our goodbyes, and I'm suggesting that you call down to the hospital and say your goodbyes as well. If you do, I'll talk to you when you call." Click. That left me in a lurch. Now, you should understand that prison is a place that has a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of rules, some of which are legitimate and some are just nonsense. Among the rules that we have is that we have a list of 10 phone numbers that we can put on our phone list. And if you want to call a number beyond that list, then you have to get approval from the higher-ups. With this, I went to my block officer, explained my situation, and asked him to notify the shift commander to facilitate a call, and he did so. He came back to me and he said to me that the shift commander informed him that authorizing such a call was above his pay grade and that he would have to notify the deputy at home, and he was reluctant to do so, and asked if I had access to a three-way, which is also against the rules. This angered me, but so as not to take it out on my block officer who did his job, I simply said to him, "I'm going for a walk," and I headed for the yard. As I walked the yard, I reflected on what my options were. Now, I could make an attempt to do a three-way and have that shut down immediately and be taken to solitary for the effort. You see, because prison is full of insignificant rules like that. One could go to solitary for not being standing while an officer was taking account. One could go to solitary and lose his visiting privileges for something as innocent and as simple as giving his children a piggyback on a visit. So I knew what I was up against. The second thing is, I could attempt to make a three-way call and have the call disrupted and shut down in the middle of a conversation, which would have turned into something real ugly real quick. The third option was not to even make an attempt at all, which was not an option. And while I was reflecting, I was interrupted by a page over the intercom directing me to report to the captain's office. When I arrived, the captain said to me, "We have been in touch with the hospital, and we have determined that you have been telling the truth," as if I would lie about something as important as that. That insulted me. And that was compounded by the fact that I had been in prison for something that I didn't do based on some lies. I knew that if I dealt with it in the way that I wanted to, I would have never been able to make the call, and making the call that day was paramount. And so I ate it, and I choked on it. They put me through to the hospital, and my sister answered the phone and placed it to my mother's ear, which presented me with yet another challenge, because I did not know if she knew what her prognosis was. So I had to tailor my comments and my wordings to her in order to say goodbye and tell her I love her without alerting her to the fact that death was imminent. During the call, my sister took the receiver and said to me, "Are you finished talking with her? Because we want you to talk to her some more, because she seemed to be responsive to your voice." And so I did. After the call, I returned to my unit where my block officer was waiting for me and asked me if I wanted to speak to a counselor or clergy to assist me with my grief. And I told him no, all I needed was some quiet time to myself. I went to my cell, sat on my bunk, and reflected about the call that I just made. And that reminded me of another important call that I had to make years earlier. You see, my mother was a working mother and was only able to attend a portion of my trial. When they convicted me and sentenced me to forever, on the way to the penitentiary, I was filled with the anxiety of how I was going to break this to my mother and what it would do to her. I got to the penitentiary and finally got up the courage to go to the phone and call my mom's. And when she answered the phone, I simply said to her, "There's no other way to say it. They gave me forever today." God bless her, she didn't blink. She said, "Son, are you still alive?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "The fight there ain't over then." That lifted a burden off of me. That gave me the strength and the focus that I needed to fight the fight that was ahead of me. It would be 38 years before I won my freedom with the help of my fantastic attorney, Mr. Jeff Harris, who's in the house tonight. My mother passed that night, before that night was over. And that left a hole in my soul, a hole that is beginning to be filled with my freedom, my reconnection to my daughter, and the meeting of my beloved grandson. What are the odds, huh? Love you, moms.
Dear mama, sorry that you passed this way. Today ain't my day. For tomorrow I pray. Oh, I pray. Dear mama, sorry that you passed